All right, CarMax seems to be hitting the brakes on spending, and today we're going to figure out why. We're diving right into the CFO's playbook from their latest earnings call to really understand their game plan for what's become a pretty tough market. Let's get right into it.
And that really brings us to the big question, doesn't it? With their earnings taking a hit, what's the actual plan coming from the finance chief's office? We're going to walk through the problem, the plan, and the whole big picture strategy, one piece at a time.
So here's the challenge, laid out in black and white. Earnings per share, well, they've dropped from 85 cents last year all the way down to 64 cents this year. That is a significant dip, and it's the kind of number that immediately makes everyone ask, okay, what's the plan? This one slide really sets the stage for everything else we're going to talk about.
So where did that drop even come from? Let's take a look at the scorecard for the quarter. We're going to pinpoint exactly where the pressure is coming from.
Okay, check this out. Total gross profit was $718 million. Now, that is a massive number, but here's the catch. It's actually down 6% from last year. This is our first major clue that overall profitability is shrinking.
And this breaks down where all that profit comes from. You can see the biggest piece of the pie, used retail margin, brought in $443 million, but that's down 8%. Simply put, that margin is the profit they pocket on each used car they sell, and right now, that profit is getting squeezed. The other areas also saw declines, which just shows that the pressure is hitting them pretty much everywhere, especially their core business.
So we've seen the numbers, but what's the story behind the numbers? Let's unpack what's really driving this whole profit situation.
And there it is, plain and simple. According to the CFO, the number one reason for the drop in earnings was just lower sales volume. They sold fewer cars. It's that simple. Now, when your main revenue engine slows down, you've really only got two choices. Figure out how to sell more or learn how to spend less. It looks like CarMax is planning to do both, but they're starting with a hard look at their costs.
And this brings us right to the centerpiece of the CFO's entire strategy. As a direct response to that sales slowdown, CarMax is rolling out a massive cost-cutting plan.
Here's the headline number you need to know, at least $150 million in cost reductions. Now, this isn't just trimming around the edges, cutting back on office supplies. This is a major operational overhaul. So let's see where those cuts are coming from.
These cuts are all coming from something called SG&A. Now, for anyone not deep in corporate finance, just think of SG&A as all the money it takes to keep the lights on. We're talking salaries, marketing, technology, rent, basically all the day-to-day costs of just running the business, totally separate from the actual cost of the cars they sell.
So how in the world do you find $150 million in savings? Well, this slide lays out their four-part plan. First, they're going to modernize and consolidate their tech systems. Second, they'll automate tasks that are still being done by hand. Third, they're going to get tougher when negotiating contracts with their suppliers. And fourth, they're streamlining the organization to get rid of any overlapping roles. It's a full-on attack on inefficiency, but the real challenge is always pulling off cuts this deep without hurting the customer experience.
Now you gotta know, this isn't an overnight fix. This plan is going to be executed over the next 18 months. And while they'll see some savings this year, the CFO was really clear that the vast majority of that $150 million benefit won't fully show up until the end of fiscal year 2027. So yeah, this is a long-term play.
But here's where the story takes a really interesting turn. This isn't just about saving money for the sake of saving money. The strategy is to spend smarter, not just spend less. And this next part reveals the ultimate goal. And there you have it, straight from the CFO himself. The whole point of this savings plan is to create additional flexibility. And flexibility for what? To reinvest that money right back into the parts of the business that will directly, and this is the key phrase, drive sales. In other words, this is about turning defense into offense. So what does that reinvestment actually look like? Well, this slide gives us some solid examples. The money they save is going to fuel an increase in marketing, and specifically to support their new Wanna Drive brand campaign. It's also going to be used to strengthen their overall financial model and to fight back against the broader pressures of inflation. They're cutting operational costs to free up cash to spend on growth.
Okay, so let's zoom out for a second and connect all these dots. What does all this financial maneuvering really mean for CarMax's big picture strategy?
This right here is the main takeaway from this whole explainer. The core strategy is to use disciplined, smart cost-cutting, not just to weather a storm, but to literally generate the fuel they need to accelerate growth and grab more market share when the time is right. It's a calculated bet on their own efficiency.
So that's the playbook. But you have to wonder,
In a fiercely competitive used car market, is getting your own house in order really enough to win? CarMax is betting that a leaner, meaner operation will give them the edge they need. The big question is, will it be enough to unlock real, meaningful growth? I guess we'll all be watching to find out